Okay, so we're going to talk about working through a word problem like this for a conic section, and we're looking at an ellipse. So this example talks about a whispering room which has an elliptically arched ceiling, and if someone stands at one focus, the whisper from their mouth bounces off the ceiling and goes right over to the other focus. And so what we're trying to find is we're trying to find the height of the ceiling above each whispering point. So we kind of want to think about what we're trying to find in order to know where we're going. So let's just make a little sketch here and get all the important information on. Okay, so we have an elliptically shaped ceiling, like so. And we have some information here that says we have a 5-foot high vertical wall. So this measurement here is 5. And then the ceiling is 20 feet above that wall. So right here, this is 20. And then we have some people standing at 2 different focus points. And so those focus points are going to be equal distance from the center of that ellipse. And we're told that they are standing 30 feet apart. So that makes this right here 15. Now, if you want to make life easy, we're going to go ahead and kind of picture that this is an XY axis. And it makes identifying some values very helpful. Okay, so again, our goal is to figure out what is the height of the ceiling above each whispering point. Well, the focus points are the whispering points. And so we're trying to find the height here. So we have an XY point, a coordinate that lies on this ellipse, and we're trying to find the Y value for it. That's our goal here. We're going to have to find some other things along the way to get there. But our ultimate goal is to figure out what is that height. Okay, so if we look at this, we can start by identifying that, yes, this is a horizontal ellipse. And to find that Y value, we first need to know the equation for this horizontal ellipse so that we could go ahead and find the Y value. And if you think about it, we can discuss this right now, that X value is already known to us. We already know that the X value above that person's head, or where that person's standing, is 15. So once we have the equation, we'll be able to plug in 15 for X to find out that Y value. But we've got to determine what the equation is. So in order to find the equation for an ellipse, we know it's horizontal. We need to know what's our H, what's our K, what's our A, and what's our B. So since we've decided to make the XY axis go through the center of the ellipse, then our H and K are 0. That just makes the math a little bit easier. Our A would be the distance from the center out to one side of the ellipse or the other, the longer side, the major axis. We don't know that. We do know the B value is 20, and we do know the C value is 15. So if I want to start writing my equation for that, I can say x squared over something plus y squared over something equals 1. Now, since it's horizontal, our a squared is going to go under the x's, so I'm going to leave that blank for now, and our b squared we already know. So we've got most of the equation already. We're going to use the equation for finding a, b, and c values. If you know 2 of them, you can figure out the third. So we're going to do c squared equals a squared minus b squared. And so that's going to be 15 squared, that's 225, equals a squared minus b squared, that's 400. And then we're going to solve for a squared. So 625 equals a squared. That means a equals 25. Now we didn't really need to square root that to write this equation because we're going to square it when we put it right back in here. But if you're trying to picture the measurements, now we know the length of the major axis. So we've got our equation, and now we can use that, now that we have this equation, to figure out what's our y value. So we're going to go back to this point that we had, and given that we know the x value is 15, we're going to solve for y. So the math here can just take a minute, but it's not that difficult. So let's start with plugging in 15 squared over 625 plus y squared over 400 equals 1. Well, 15 squared is 225, and I'm going to keep solving. And then 625 and 225, those are both divisible by 25. So I can reduce this. This would become a 9. This would become a 25. Now I'm trying to solve for y. So I'm going to take this 9/25 and I'm going to subtract it over so that this goes away. And so now I've got y squared over 400 equals, and if I want to do 1 minus 9 over 25, we should think of 1 as 25 over 25. And when I subtract those, I get 16 over 25. Still trying to get y alone, so I'm going to multiply by 400. And then when I do that, the 25 down here and the 400 up here both reduce. So I can divide 25 by 25, I get 1. I can divide 400 by 25 and I get 16. So y squared equals 16 times 16. I don't need to multiply that out. I can just say y equals 16. Okay, so we just found that height, y equals 16. Don't forget what the final question is. You've done all this work. So this y is 16, but that's not our final answer. We're trying to find the height above the person, so from the ceiling to the floor. So we're going to take our 5, our final height, equals the 5 feet that represent the sides of the walls that the ellipse are resting on, and then add that 16. So we're going to say 21 feet. Okay, so when you're working on a problem like this, you just kind of have to figure out what we're trying to find and how we're going to go about it. In this case, we had to first determine the equation for the ellipse and then use a known x value to find a y value, and then make sure we take that y value and ultimately find or identify the value that we are being asked to identify.